This week is the nation's 248th birthday on, of course, the 4th of July. That means an even bigger milestone is just a couple years away. 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the formation of the United States of America. Back in 2020, Governor Phil Scott signed an executive order creating Vermont's 250th Anniversary Commission. It's working to plan commemorations and support communities in hosting events that look back at the American Revolution and its legacy and look forward to building stronger communities in the future. Those events and history lessons will continue into 2027 for the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Vermont Constitution, as well as the 250th anniversary of significant conflicts, including the Battle of Hubbardton in modern-day Rutland County. We spoke with the chair of Vermont's 250th Anniversary Commission, Laura Trishman, who's also the State Historic Preservation Officer.
And we've been slowly figuring out how to plan, how to support communities, organizations, how to partner with our New England states, bringing everyone together, figuring out what we want to do.
You are careful to word this as a commemoration and not a celebration. Help our viewers understand the distinction between those.
Well, certainly we celebrate the Declaration of Independence and the founding of our country, but we want to be very respectful of groups that didn't find it such a great, wonderful time. The Native Americans were losing their land. There were people loyal to the British that were killed or had their properties taken away. The African Americans were put in a very bad position as well. Their freedom was not as we know it today. So it was not always a great time, and we want to be sure that we respect everyone's views and observations, and that is our way of encouraging conversations, good and bad. Difficult conversations.
Viewers of a certain age, in their mid-50s or older, will remember the bicentennial, of course, in 1976. Were there any lessons that you might have looked back on records from 1976 and how the country marked that 200th birthday that could inform the 250th?
That's a really excellent question, and I would say most of the commission remembers and was greatly influenced by the bicentennial, myself included. I remember growing up in New Jersey, and we could see all the big flagships in New York Harbor. That celebration of history and the founding fathers and founding mothers, who these people were and what made them fight so hard for a place, for land, for a story, really, really moved me. And those are the things we really want to cultivate. What we really want to talk about now has changed as we learn more about our founding fathers, we learn more about each other and our state and our country. So this time we want to make sure that those difficult conversations are happening. And that includes slavery, the Native Americans, what were women doing during the Revolutionary War, the home front kind of situation. That really wasn't the focus during the bicentennial.
Those are things that are often not thought about, those hard conversations you referenced. You know, the 4th of July is a time for fireworks, for parades, for hot dogs and hamburgers for many families. And they should stay those things because it is so fun in the summer. But you're saying it could be more.
It should be more. And I want to make sure that we also don't stop after 2027 when the commission expires, but that these are things that continue on, that we do roadside historic markers that have a Revolutionary War focus that continue, that we read other documents besides the Declaration of Independence. We look at the Constitution. We look at what Frederick Douglass was saying about the 4th of July for African Americans. You know, these stories, these celebrations, these difficult conversations should continue.
And the commission has representation from some of those groups that you referenced, for example, members of the Indigenous community.
Yes, there is intentionally a seat on the commission for a representative chosen by the Vermont Commission on Native American Affairs. It is very important. And we've also got a number of committees that include people who are not part of the commission themselves, but bring a great deal of representation, stories, perspectives, and ideas.
The Commission has made planning grants available to communities. How do you envision those grants being used?
They can do anything they want. We really encourage them to explore. It could be something as simple as a lecture, reading of the Declaration of Independence and having people brought around with some pizza, or elevating their parade. It could be anything they want to be, from art exhibits, permanent installations, difficult conversations, reading of books. We just want to encourage communities, organizations, people to explore our country's founding, how we got here, and the state of Vermont. This is where they can start growing their ideas and figuring out how much money they would need, if any, how they can actually make things happen. But the big thing for us is bringing the people together to start cultivating those ideas.
The planning grants that the Commission has made available are very open-ended, correct? Because the commemorations might look quite different in Bennington County as compared to, say, Caledonia County.
Absolutely, and we want to encourage that. We want to make sure that communities in every part of Vermont know that they have this opportunity. It's not just where most of the fighting was taking place. We want to make sure that everyone who was living during this time, their life, their world is explored. And also not just stopping in the time of the Revolution, but then we became the Republic of Vermont for 14 years. Then we became the first state admitted to the Union after the 13 colonies formed. You know, what does that look like for Vermonters? And since then.
And those are all stories that will continue to be told, for example, at our historic sites.
Exactly, yes. And we want to use this opportunity to set those stories up.
And planning grants are still available, correct?
Correct. All the way through to July 15th, I believe, is the deadline. And then we'll see how much money we still have left. And we're trying to turn the tide to get implementation grants as well.
Well, we'll put information on applying for those grants on our website, mynbc5.com. What we now today know as Vermont didn't exist during the American Revolution, yet parts of Vermont really played an important role, namely Hubbardton. Tell me about Hubbardton's role in the American Revolution.
That was a very strategic battle that did take place in what would become Vermont on July 7th, 1777. And although it was not an American win, it did turn the tide and helped in the big battles at Saratoga, where the Americans did start to make a difference.
So I imagine that 250 years later, there will be quite a commemoration taking place at the historic site in Hubbardton.
Yes, oh, most definitely. But because we've got other historic sites that also have Revolutionary War or Vermont history, we want to make sure that we're not cramming everything into 1 year so that it won't all be 2027. We will be staggering things out. Mount Independence might do something in 2026. Old Constitution House in Windsor will reopen in 2027. This way, people can have a variety of places to go and visit.
This would theoretically be something that could be talked about from a tourism promotion standpoint. This is potentially quite big for our state.
Absolutely, it's really wonderful. And I would also say beyond our state, because it is generating wonderful relationships and partnerships with New Hampshire, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. We all meet on a very regular basis because there were no true boundaries in the colonies at the time. Fighting did not stop just because, oh, I've moved into New Hampshire now. It was all open territory. So we want to make sure that from a tourist perspective, a community development perspective, those boundaries don't exist and people can go and enjoy and experience.
I just couldn't help but reflect when you were talking about the difficult conversations that you hope community members have. Our country so often seems so divided, whether it's on political grounds or on the culture wars. Yet, the 4th of July could be a reminder of what we have in common. We have stories that bring us together. Is it your hope that the planning for the 250th could do just that?
Yes, that is exactly what the Commission is hoping. We have a lot in common and we have a lot to learn. And that is a way we can commemorate and celebrate.
Happy Independence Day, Laura.
Happy 4th of July to you as well.
The planning grants for local communities our guest spoke about are small, $1,000, and come from donations from the Doris Buffett Legacy Foundation and the group Vermont Covered, which works to close the digital divide. The Vermont Historical Society is a partner in administering those grants.